Hi, it's Agnes and JJ. You brought up in your requests when I asked for them about a meditation to win a legal battle, but I remembered something that would probably help you just as well, and it's a story, and I'm going to read it to you today. Okay? So, it's called The Verdict Is Not Guilty. The desire was a healthy body and no jail. Time frame was 2 years. On the 20th of November 2012, Nancy Hunter had a paragliding accident in the Himalayas in Nepal. She had had a great flight that morning and had decided to go on a second one that afternoon, despite that she was feeling a bit unwell. She saw the eagles and the vultures dancing in the air and she wanted to fly to show she could do it. Unfortunately, she didn't listen to her intuition that afternoon, which was saying not to go. Only 1 out of 40 gliders are women. Nancy wanted to break through her fear of flying. That day, while flying, she could see everything. The sun was beaming. It was exhilarating. As she turned the glider, she felt a hit mid-turn. She aimed her weight towards the mountains, and she felt the hit again. She looked up and saw one of the wings had collapsed. People were yelling at her to get out of the harness. My kids was her first thought at that moment, but oddly, she wasn't thinking of dying. She hit the ground hard and she had fractured her ribs and her foot was smashed amongst other things. 8 men rushed to her aid and got a blanket and some bamboo to make a splint. One guy had liquid morphine and he gave her some, but they knew that she couldn't go to sleep. It took 1.5 hours to carry her down the mountain. From there, they had a 4-wheel drive for transport. They made a bed for her and drove her to the nearest hospital, 1.5 hours away. The bones were sticking out of her ankle, through her sock. Heel and joint were badly fractured. They had to cut her boot off. Her sock was inside the bones. They wrapped it up and put her in an ambulance for a 7-hour ride through a potholed road to Kathmandu to take her to a better hospital. She was operated on there and remained there for 12 days. She then returned to her home in London, UK. Nancy's family was in Sydney, Australia. She was enormously helped by friends, but eventually people had to go back to their lives. And having no family except her 2 young twin boys, she was torn as to what to do. Nancy had insurance, but she was told that they wouldn't pay her if she went to Australia to be cared for by her family. She was in emotional turmoil and decided she really needed her family, and as soon as the injuries were reasonable to fly, she left with her kids to Sydney. She needed them. She needed help to recover and heal and help taking care of the twins. She had argued with the insurance company about their decision before leaving the UK. Her foot had been badly operated on in Nepal. It was crooked. She was re-operated on in Australia. They put plates in her foot and she was told she wouldn't walk again. She stayed 5 months in Sydney and went to the beach on crutches to swim and recover with the support of her family. She also did acupuncture. She was screaming while they were doing it. She said it was like the trauma of the injury was being released during these sessions. The acupuncturist kept repeating to her, "You will walk again." And Nancy chose to believe it. The sand, beach, and ocean were great influences on healing of Nancy's body. Nancy's sister was getting married at the time. Nancy made it on the wedding day, on crutches, which was a milestone in the healing journey. She kept saying to herself, "I can heal myself," over and over and over again. Then she went back to London, UK. She attracted help again. A cranial osteopath treated her for free. She had plates in her foot from the operation in Australia. She had had 4 operations in total and she was debating taking the plates out. 6 specialists didn't want to take them out. They didn't feel the foot would hold together on its own, considering the nature of the accident. Nancy was determined to fully heal herself and she decided the plates had to come out. She finally found a specialist who would remove them. 3 months later, the bones in her foot healed themselves nicely. Nancy continued to believe and said, "I can heal myself," despite what the 6 specialists had said. Just letting the ambulance go by. While Nancy was dealing, very appropriate for this story, by the way, while Nancy was dealing with all the physical challenges of healing, another storm was heading her way. Her neighbours had reported to council that she had left the country, and when she got back to London, there was a letter under her door to say, "We have reason to believe you have not been living in your home." She had been receiving a benefit from the government, and a condition of receiving it was that you couldn't leave the country. She was summoned for an interview, and she honestly told them that she had been depressed and her body smashed from the operations and needed the support of family to care for her and her boys. She spent from May 2013 until September 2013 getting hospital paperwork from them, from Nepal, since all the records were not on computer there. According to the government, she'd broken the law and jail time was a possibility. It took from October 2013 to May 2014 for them to do the paperwork for Nancy to face court. Jail was looming in the air that whole time, which was really difficult to say the least, while Nancy was trying to heal her body. At this stage, she was still on 2 crutches. I met Nancy while we were doing a law of attraction coaching course online. We were on the same conference calls and we became friends over that time. Nancy was doing the law of attraction as we studied it to heal her body. And then the 2 of us had Skype calls every 2 weeks leading up to the court case. I was determined to help her be free and not face jail time. She read, did affirmations and was coached, and another friend helped her assemble all her paperwork for court in chronological order. Lawyers told her to plead guilty. They said she can't fight the government. Nancy and I discussed the fact that although she was guilty of leaving the country, she did it for the reasons of caring for herself and her kids. She was suffering from guilt and I wanted to help her. She had suffered enough with the accident, no money and 2 boys to care for on her own. I had read a fantastic story in Neville Goddard's book, The Law and the Promise, of a woman who had to go to court, and the judge in the courtroom that day had a reputation of being harsh and stern, and the lawyers had told her no chance of success. This woman had turned to her imagination, and while the jury was out, she ignored all that and repeated silently to herself, "The verdict is not guilty," over and over and over. I recounted this story to Nancy and she took hold of it and applied it to herself, hearing in imagination, "The verdict is not guilty." She said it to the lead up of the court case. She did what she could to keep her mind on freedom, on healing her body, and on success so that she could continue to heal and take care of her twin boys. She affirmed, "It will all be resolved for the good of all concerned." She also said, "The verdict is not guilty." She went to the ocean and baptized herself, talking to the universe for a successful outcome. She Skyped me that day from the car. It was a very powerful conversation. She was brave, about to face court that very next day. The court asked that the first day if she had any prior offences. Everyone looked around at each other. No one had bothered to check this. So the court was rescheduled for the following day, and it bought Nancy a bit more time to organise her paperwork. Next day, they came to the conclusion that she couldn't do community service since she couldn't walk. Nancy kept quiet and sent love to everyone in the courtroom, the judge, the lawyers, and all else present. They then decided on a pigeon bracelet to be worn on her good ankle for 3 months, which meant a curfew of 11 p.m. every single day. She continued to send love and said to herself, "I made a mistake, so don't make them wrong. They're just doing their jobs." She noticed that they didn't look at her. They were all rushing around, not concerned about what they were doing, and she asked, "Has anyone read the paperwork?" It seemed they had breezed over it but not taken much of it in. Someone piped up and said, "A year's probation. She should go to jail for 3 months." Nancy continued saying the verdict is not guilty in her head over and over and over again. So the final result was a pigeon curfew bracelet for 6 weeks, probation for 6 months from August 2014 to February 2015, meaning she couldn't leave the country, otherwise she'd go to jail. She also has to pay back the money. No jail for Nancy. Sentence was light and bearable. Now Nancy and I are working on stage 2, the money part, to be continued. So that story is from Nancy Joyce Hunter, and I will put her website down in the description. It is actually from my book, Emerald City, and for those of you that know me, I am not big on marketing and telling people buy this, subscribe to this, like this. It's really not how I work. But every now and again I will tell you what I am doing, and if you're interested you can go and investigate. There's also this book, A Person of Interest. Both books I've written, they're on Amazon. They're also on my website, which the links will be down in the bottom. And yeah, if you want to read some true stories, that's where you can get them. Okay? Now, that story from Neville also, In the Law and the Promise, it is such a great story. If any of you are facing any kind of court or judgment, or you're waiting for something that could be not very nice, this is a fabulous, fabulous story to read. So, there you go. Mwah.